Hi, oh, welcome to Show Me podcast. This is Suzanne. Suzanne actually was my first client back then in 2013, and she came to visit me from far away from Israel. No, right now. You came to visit me right now. And it was a great opportunity to ask her if we can do that. And I'm very happy that you're here.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here with Kineret. Um, we first met, let's see, I'm living in Israel 6 years. We probably met 8 years ago, 10 years ago,
2013, I remember myself.
2013. Okay, so 12 years ago. And this is how I met Kineret. I had a dream of moving to Israel. That was like really big. That was something that I was yearning to do for men, like since I was 18 years old. And I found this thing called Shishi Nashi. On Friday afternoons, there was this artist, jewelry person who had a beautiful space. And every Friday, she would do something called Shishi, which means Friday. Shishi Nashi, Women's Friday. And every Friday I would go there and there would be women and women would talk. And every once in a while she'd bring in interesting women who would speak a little bit about themselves and what they do. So this particular Shishinashi, Kineret, came, and Kineret was telling everyone that she's a life coach and she just had, I guess, graduated from her Adlerian course. And I'll never forget this. She did a couple of exercises, but one of the exercises was she asked the women to stand in two circles, two concentric circles, one inside the other. And then everyone had to turn to face their partner and just stare into their eyes. And so I stood and I stared into my partner's eyes. And all I could think was, oh my God, this person who's staring at me, can she see how much emotional pain I am in? I guess I was in a lot of emotional pain in those days. I can't really remember now what that pain was, but I was in a lot of emotional pain. And I stared at the woman stared at me, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I was just afraid that she could see into me because the eyes are the windows of the soul. And all I was thinking, oh my God, can this woman see how much pain I'm in? And more the woman stared at me and I stared at her, and we started to smile, and just tears started rolling down my face, and couldn't I couldn't stop. And then the more I was crying, the more I thought, oh my God, now this woman really can see what kind of emotional pain I'm in. And anyways, and then we had to switch partners, and I just couldn't do this exercise. It was just absolutely horrible for me. Anyways, after the exercise, Keenarit spoke, and I calmed myself down, and I really liked her. I thought she had a lot of wisdom, and there was a lot. I don't know, I had this feeling that I wanted to work with her. And so I went over and I spoke to her, and she had just come to Canada. And so she wanted to practice her English. I wanted to practice my Hebrew. She wanted to, you know, practice and start her career with someone. And so you see now 12 years for 12 years, for a long time I was with her in terms of using her as a coach, and then I followed her as she moved into creating her own coaching game, Show Me. I became a practitioner. I eventually moved to Israel, which I really credit with the coaching that I did with Kineret. I think it really freed up something. It helped me look at all kinds of things, and it just changed my life. And so here we are 12 years later. It's amazing.
I have to admit that you're sharing this story, and I imagine this moment in Shishinashi. I remember this moment so well. And you know what? I'm looking at you now, and on one hand, you haven't changed. You just became more pretty and young. I don't know how. Seriously, I'm looking at you. But the journey. And it's so beautiful to see that. I remember that you came to me in the first session, coaching session. Back then I was like a Adlerian coach. And I remember that you really wanted to go back to, like, to go and move to Israel. It's not back, it's like to move to Israel. I just came back from there. I arrived here. Um, and I can tell that with you, you saw all the angles and all the waves of my journey, my own journey. And I invited you here because I'm interviewing people that known me enough to first of all see and talk and give some kind of like testimonials, feedback, sharings of all this journey. I call it Show Me right now, because Show Me, it's not only mine anymore. It's not me. It's not me coaching. It's a method. It's I call it my baby, because also when I do the conscious kitchen, which is a beautiful concept with dinner, I'm talking about the fertilities issues, and I'm talking about how Xiaomi was born, and the same week that I've had this big, big kind of like big moment with big challenge of adoption. But what I'm saying is that I would like to hear from you how you can share, and feel free to give feedback, feel free to say what you experienced as a coach, as a client first, and then as a coach, and what Show Me um, brought and contributed into your life, especially as a person that is coming from religious. And I love to interview you because I'm sure you encountered Show Me, and I know that it was integrated with a lot of, like, you learned more stuff parallel to Show Me. And I want to hear your experience. I want to hear more about what you took from Show Me, how you integrated it, like how did you look at it at the beginning? What was your journey about that?
Okay, so that's a very, very big question
I know.
with a lot of parts. So I'm going to start to answer. And if I get side railed, just direct me
Okay.
back. Okay, but um, I'll start off. Okay, we began with Adlerian coaching, and then you created Show Me, which was, as you said, a birth after a very long labor. And so I'll tell you what I loved about Show Me. As I was going through the coaching process with you, I was growing, I was learning, and when I was a young girl, I always wanted to be a psychologist. I thought I wanted to be a psychologist. Now, I think when I think about it, most of my friends all wanted, everyone, what are you majoring in university? Psych, 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 psych. So everyone wanted to be a psychologist. And I don't think that really everybody wants to be a psychologist. I think everybody wants to figure themselves out. Everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to improve. And 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 I think many people have the desire to help others. I think everyone has the desire to help others. So I think that's part one. So as I was going through the coaching experience with you, I was growing as a person. I was, you know, like you always love to use the expression or the metaphor of the flashlight in the dark room. And I think that's beautiful because that's really what we're doing, like holding a flashlight so people can see what's going on, or giving them the flashlight and allowing them to turn on the flashlight and to see really, what's in the dark basement or what's in the dark tunnel. So one of the things that I think that our coaching did was, first of all, it helped me open up an understanding that I didn't have to be a psychologist. And now we know that there are so many ways to help people. Like, I think, in today's day and age, more and more, we know that there's, somatic therapy, and there's breathwork therapy, and there's coaching, and there's psychotherapy, and there's EMDR, and there's all of these different modalities that don't have to be psychology, and they're very, very powerful healing modalities. So that's number one, I would say, is like seeing what coaching was and experiencing my own breakthroughs, which I got tremendous breakthroughs. I mean, I started to see patterns in my life. I started to understand that patterns are messages and they're invitations to be able to see that pattern, or that, when I get upset, it's a trigger, and the trigger is an invitation to see the pattern and to be able to notice it and to either work through it or to acknowledge it or to let it go, or whatever. There's so many options of what we can do when we're triggered. But I didn't know that. And I remember at the very beginning, I used to come every week with a crazy story. And like now I understand through the coaching that we did together and then through learning Show Me, now I understand that that's where the work is. So towards the end of our coaching, you gave birth to Show Me. And then you led me through a Show Me process, and then you taught me how to be a Show Me facilitator. And what's beautiful about Show Me is that it lays out, it's a method, and it lays out very, very systematically, in order, a beautiful process that a person can learn how to do. Now, in the very, very early days of Show Me, I trained with you, and then this is like my mantra: I don't know enough, I'm not good enough. I don't know enough, I'm not ready. I don't know enough, I'm not ready. So what I actually did was, during COVID, when I was already living in Israel, I'd already manifested my big dream. My husband and I moved to Israel, and that was like a huge, huge thing. And I really, really, as I said before, I really believed that the coaching that I did with Kinneret helped move, shift, get me unstuck, get the process going, get me ready emotionally to be able to do it. Something came unstuck. But anyways, during COVID, I felt like, how am I going to be ready to do Show Me? How am I going to be ready to do coaching? And I actually went to coaching school. And I took a year-long coaching. That was the first, like, after the Show Me learning the method, I did like a proper full year coaching school. And what I realized as I did the coaching school, and I would call Kinneret and I would tell her, I would notice that all the things that were being taught in coaching school was one of the steps, was a step. So for example, in coaching school, we learn about metaphors. Well, Show Me is all about metaphors. Then, we learned, a couple of weeks, we learned about inner child. So Show Me deals with memory, and usually it's from a childhood memory, and that was the inner child. Then I learned in coaching school about, pies, like pies is Pies. What is the physical? What is the emotional? And that is the show me map. And I would call Kinneret, I would say, oh my gosh, you literally took what I just learned in coaching school and you put it into steps, into a beautiful package of 12-week journey, and and I just couldn't believe that everything that I was learning was systematically built into the show me method. So that was really cool because it really gives a practitioner a roadmap. Because I will tell you that I went for therapy. I went for all different kinds of therapy for many, many, decades of my life. And you just come in and you talk. You just talk about what happened this week and what you're upset about. And like, I never really felt like I got anywhere with it. I did do cognitive behavioral therapy, and I feel that Show Me has a little bit of that in it too, like just kind of noticing the patterns, being able to look at the patterns, being able to ask yourself certain questions about the patterns, figuring out where the patterns started. So I would say that I really enjoyed learning it learning it, relearning it again after I did coaching school, and just really appreciating the wisdom of the process. And I will also say that after I did my coaching course, my year-long coaching course, I actually took a few clients from coaching school, and I went through, I think I did two people from my coaching school. I took them through the show me process, the full 12-week, and they loved it. They were like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is like everything that we learned in a beautiful formula kind of a journey." I mean, obviously there's space to change things, to move around, but I think it's very powerful for the practitioner. So that was one part of the question. Can you please focus me back?
So, first of all, I love to hear what you have to say because it's actually connecting all the dots of your journey, because I was focused on show me all the time, and you were there all the time, but I knew that you're learning more stuff, because the pattern was, I'm not enough, and I need more, I need more, I need more. And it's totally okay. This is part of, you know, really get, the content, the knowledge, the whatever the soul needs to settle, and you find by the end of the day you find yourself. And we're going to talk about that too later on in another question. But the second part of your question was, you're coming from religious. How how do you see show me aligned with the religious part? And I know that there was the struggle there, but I want to see what's the conversation is now about that. Like, what do you think?
Okay, so I would say that towards I guess around the same time of your birthing Show Me and me training in Show Me, I started learning Jewish meditation. And the the mentor, the rabbi that I was learning with, speaks a lot about Chassidut. So Chassidut is like the Baal Shem Tov took Kabbalistic concepts and brought them down to the layman. So, for example, like we talk about in Judaism a trigger, like a midah, a trigger that comes up and that it wants to be healed, and darkness that wants to see the light, And I remember you would give me concepts such as, mirrors, everything is a reflection. So Kabbalistically, there's a concept of the upper world and the lower world are mirrors. So, you know, I read this beautiful Kabbalistic book called You Are What You Hate, um, a beautiful book by Sarah Judith Schneider. And she writes all kinds of beautiful Kabbalistic books. And just sort of understanding that all of the things that we're sort of talking about today in the language of consciousness is in our sources. Like, for example, in meditation, when we talk about mindfulness, that in Hebrew is Yishuv Hadat. And it's written in our sources, but nobody really talks about it. There's a concept, dveikut. So it's in all of our prayers, dveikut. But what does dveikut mean? So dveikut means actually getting into that high experience of meditation and being in that connection with God.
Talking and I have a goosebump. Seriously.
Um, so I started tapping in, through this teacher that I was learning with. Another thing that I wanted to say is like this whole concept that we learn in coaching about manifesting. Our words create our reality, or what we focus on grows. And, I am statements and all of these things to manifest the future that we want. Well, there's a concept in Chassidut called Koach HaMoshach, that we can actually harness the strength and the power to bring things down. But we need to be in alignment with what our soul is in alignment with, and also to be tapped in to know what God wants for us. And then like just to see like things that are happening as messages, like little breadcrumbs that God kind of drops along the way, so that, like, for example, not that this would ever happen to me, but like, if I would find myself in a situation where I'm constantly finding myself triggered by this one and triggered by that one and triggered by this one and triggered by that one, that would never happen to me. Instead of saying, oh, that person's driving me crazy, this person's making me angry, now I can say, oh, wow, take a look. There's a pattern. Like, what is God trying to show me? Like, what midah, what character trait am I being called on to work on now? And to be grateful for the messages, because there's something inside me still, another layer that needs to be cleaned, another darkness that's come up that wants to be released into the light. It, like, to have the religious language for me to understand their midas that are coming up, that want to be released back into the light, and they're coming up because they want to be healed. So this was sort of like the Jewish language that I didn't know existed. And the coaching course that I actually took was from a religious Jewish woman. And while she appeals to people in all different, like religious, non-religious, everything was very spiritually connected. So I really, really appreciated that. And so I'll tell you where the struggle came in with Show Me, because Kinneret knows that this was a struggle. Show Me is based on Chinese medicine, and the words that are used with Show Me are from the Tao or the Tao, however you. So I had a hard time for myself referring back to the Tao, as a reference. But I opened it up and it was just all beautiful language. So I kind of like also understand in life and with every method, take what you like and leave the rest. And I would kind of preface that when I was working with clients. I would say, if we got stuck on something, I'd say, we can open up this book and we can see, get some other perspectives of what this word means or what this concept is, and we can take what resonates with us and we can leave the rest. Maybe it'll open something for us, maybe it won't. So that was where my struggle was. But I was able to figure out how to work within it for myself.
You said something so that I was waiting until you will finish because I want to share with you two things. First of all, I'm going to start with the Tao. Tao. Interestingly enough, after October 7, I closed all the media. I decided just, to create my own space. It was hard for me. And I started to learn Kabbalah because I felt like I really need to learn my roots. I need to understand better my roots. And while I'm learning Kabbalah and I'm getting all the information about Koach HaMoshech or a lot of terminologies that I used to know from the manifestation and uh, and the coaching codes, all of a sudden got connected from a different angle from the Kabbalah. Exactly like what you said. Hold on, my אוזניות רגע. But, and then, I'm practicing Show Me. I've been practicing Show Me since 2017 when we published the first edition, Ilana and I. And Tao for me was, up until learning Kabbalah, was the gap. Like the gap between the yin yang, the gap between the feminine and the masculine, the gap between the inner child and the higher self, the gap. Like the gap between the language, between the words. And that's what we are like observing, processing, analyzing, and show me. It's the gap. It's the energy in between. Okay. And all of a sudden, after I learned Kabbalah and I listened to many podcasts, I understood that the gap is the one. The gap is the one. Is we have the dualities, we have the yin yang, we have black white, we have the inner child higher self, we have feminine masculine, we have black, we have winter, we have summer, we have the dualities because we were born here. But there is something there in between that instead of fighting or struggling or judging it, once we allow this gap to be, we are already starting to integrate and we are already starting to get aligned with whatever God wanted us to pour there. We wanted to pour love instead of war. So once you understand that the one is the gap, you already shift your energy into acceptance instead of like shame, guilt, blame, judgment. And then the Tao for me became, instead of writing the word Tao, I was writing in my session the word one or God or the creator or universe, whatever you want to call it, but it's something bigger that is communicating with us. And for me, it was a big piece in the puzzle that was missing. And as for the Koach HaMoshech, the manifestation, I'm coming back into that because you were talking. I understand that you don't need to manifest. You just need to create a vessel that you are allowing God to be there. And by that, you are manifesting. It's not you are thinking of something that you don't have. And then you're coming from the lack of it and try No, it's not bad. It's not about that. Show and I love show me on that on that line, on that meaning, because what show me does, it's like fine tuning the vessel, the energy, the emotional level, so you will be able more acceptance, so you will be able to receive, so you will be able to sync with whatever energy is there that is trying to come. But because you're fighting, you're not allowing, you're resisting. But once you are accepting the one, you are actually creating some kind of intimacy with something bigger than you that just want to be there and to play some music through you and to allow you to manifest what he wants us to manifest here. So it's a big one. And yes, show me is a coaching game, as you said. But what I love is that we are not manifesting in a way of writing a vision. We are asking a question. By asking that question, we are actually connecting with that one. And we are getting into some kind of like a statement that says, I don't know the way. I really don't. I just want to feel. And then you get connect to the emotional levels that you want to activate. And once you get connected to them, you are already in sync with this one, and you start to take this duality into some other shapes. So this one will be able to be there. So as long as I'm investigating the Kabbalah, I love to see that this process based on Chinese medicine, and if you ask me, 3,000 years ago, it will be very interesting to understand exactly what was the historical history in the Bible back then, 3,000 years ago, when the Chinese medicine was born, and to see the inspirations, because I'm sure there are lots of messages that in this world right now are waking up. They I believe that all this chaos that we have, it's because we need to wake up. And and people like you who are coming from a place of a deep emunah, was born into that, and I'm coming from a place of curiosity, and you're coming also from eyes like place of curiosity. That's what bridges all kinds of like conceptions that in the past they stayed dual and they didn't have this one, or they did but in a very distortive way that they couldn't connect. So I believe that that's the waking up.
Wow. Okay. I don't know what to respond to first. That was so beautiful, everything that you just said. Okay. So let me see if I should have been taking notes. But um, so one of the things that I want to say that you touched on is the vessel. And this is a Kabbalistic idea, the idea of there's a few ideas of vessel, but first one is that we're always building, that we are that our job in this world. I took this from the coaching course and from what I learned with the Rav that I learn with, is that our job in this world really is building our vessel. Like, not in a selfish way, but like every challenge we go through it, how we cope with it, we're either building our vessel or we're shattering our vessel. And there is a concept that, the Big Bang theory, that the light was so bright that it shattered the vessel, and that we spend our lifetime in the world picking up the pieces of the shattered vessel and raising it back up into the light, which is a really, really beautiful image. And that is we can look at our lives that way, that, everybody experiences some kind of trauma, whatever it is everyone has a package. Everyone's got something to work for. Every soul comes into this world with the work of the unique soul that it needs to do and its purpose. But but fixing our vessel, building our vessel, expanding our vessel, the 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 larger we expand our vessel, the more light we can hold. The stronger our vessel is, the more we can contain. And I love that concept. I have a friend who's a potter, and I thought of this beautiful image. I didn't think of it. It seems intuitive to me that you take a lump of clay and you round it and you shape it, and there's no space in it. And then you start to put your fingers in, and it goes around. And the more you spread it, the more you open it, the more space you create. Wow. The wider the vessel is, the more it can physically contain. The more matter it can contain, the more light it can contain, the more people it can serve. Beautiful. So I love that image. And about the idea about the one that you spoke about, the one as the gap. So after October 7th, I went on Deanie Cooper-Smith. I'm putting a plug in for her. She has a beautiful women's trip that goes to Israel. She does it once or twice a year, and I went. I really was in such a really hard place, as everybody was after October 7th, trying to figure out how to hold this all, how to live. There were so many polar opposites, and that's when we think about duality. The horrific things that happened in Israel, the death, the destruction, the murder, the despair. And then everywhere I walked, there were young people opening up centers and people dropping off, food and shampoo and underwear for the soldiers, and people were cooking and baking, and everybody was in action to try to help. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, like the dark and the light, the duality, and everywhere you went, everything felt like this stark duality. On this trip, we went down to a hotel, this beautiful hotel, and there were young kids roller skating through the hotel because they had been evacuated from their homes. So there was this beautiful hotel filled with mefunim, filled with people who had been expelled from their home because they couldn't live there. On the one hand, people, living in this hotel, eating food that was prepared for them, and on the other hand, really just wanting to be home. And I started to see everything as duality. But I realized everything is not duality. Everything is little parts of one. Like it's more than a duality. It's a trillionality, gazillionality, little teeny tiny atoms that make up one. And and I thought about it, another metaphor, because Show Me has a lot of metaphors. When last year we rented a cottage, and I went into a kayak, and I went onto the lake. And when you dip your paddle in the lake, you dip into the water and you create a ripple, and everything is a ripple effect. So you see how everything just spreads in concentric circles into one, but it's many ripples of one. And when you lift your paddle, a droplet falls off the paddle. It's been separated, and then it goes back into the water, and that creates a ripple, and it's all one. So yeah, everything is one, even though to our human eyes, maybe we have two eyes, so we see it as duality, and we have two ears, so we hear it as duality. But it's really, everything is really just small components of the great oneness.
You know, you're talking, and I can't ignore the fact that I feel that right now you moved to your own ripple effect. Like, if we think about, I'm telling you that I was like observing your journey, and your journey had a lot of dualities: Canada, Israel, religious coaching, a lot of dualities that create some struggles on the way or challenges on the way. And I feel now that you got it. You got it. And I want on this specific platform to take the opportunity also to say out loud what you are doing, because it's so beautiful to see, a person that, you know, I, I feel like I love to work with people one on one, and to see the journey throughout the years. And for me, as a first client here in Canada, so I can see the whole journey. So I want to hear more about what you're doing today. By the way, ripples, and you're talking with a lot of metaphors, but I feel like you're bringing the metaphor to life. So, what exactly are you doing today?
Okay, so I'll tell you what I'm doing today, but I'll just do a little preface. So I said that I started studying the Jewish meditation, and I'm like, I want to be a Jewish meditation teacher. And then did the coaching. I want to be a life coach. And then I studied a whole bunch of other things, and I was like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I got stuck. I didn't do anything. I was filling my vessel. I was building my vessel, and I was filling it and filling it and filling it and filling it. And I couldn't figure out what to do with it. And I didn't, I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. I need to know more. I felt like I just I wasn't ready. And then I heard about sound healing. So someone had told me about sound healing. And I've always loved sound. I've always loved music. I never really learned how to play a musical instrument, but I just love sound. So I went to a sound meditation, and as I'm lying there, I was thinking, listening to the sound meditation, I'm like, wow, I could do like Jewish meditation and play sounds at the same time. And as I was lying there and listening to the sounds of, when you go to a sound bath, there are certain instruments that you'll like and certain instruments that you won't. Certain instruments that will resonate with you and certain instruments that will trigger you. So as I was listening to the gong and I was listening to the Tibetan bowl, I was lying there going, I don't like these sounds. And I was like, what is a Jewish sound? I wonder what a Jewish sound. I wonder what does Judaism have to say about sound? And that seems to be like something that my soul always asks. What does Judaism say? What's the Jewish lens on coaching? What's the Jewish lens on meditation? It just, I don't know why, but it just is something that I just do. I don't know. Maybe it's a soul calling. I don't know. But anyways, and I left the sound bath, and I started thinking like, what would be a Jewish sound? And I'm thinking, and suddenly, the image of the shofar came into my mind, and I started thinking, oh my gosh, every year during the holiest day of the year, we listen to the sound of the shofar, and we listen to it as a community, like almost like a giant sound bath in shul or at the kotel. All of the month of Elul, they play the shofar. And I started thinking about sound and Judaism and the shofar, and I was like it just kind of hit me over the head. I'm like, we stand there as a community and we listen to this sound and hope that it'll open up our hearts It'll reconnect us back to our soul, and it'll connect us to God individually and communally. And that was sort of like, well, what else? So I started ordering whatever I could find. I started looking it up. I started researching it. I started getting books on the shofar. I got books on Kabbalah and music and meditation and prayer. And I just started learning. And we say that the world was created like God said, let there be light, and there was light. God said. And so I learned something beautiful, that Hebrew was created with shorashim, roots, root letters. So ledaber, to speak, and davar, thing, is created by the same dalid beit resh root. So it's the same like manifestation, and our words create our reality. God speaks, and formation is created. And so I started thinking, well, what is speech? Speech is sound. And so I started just going, researching that and going into that really, really deeply. Then, another part of my story is, at some point, my vessel was getting so big, and what I was learning was so, my vessel, I literally, it's funny because I told you before I was dealing with inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
Yes.
like this. And I was like, still, I don't know enough. I can't do it. I just didn't have the guts. I wanted to start doing sound healing. And I just was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And then I told you this story, that one day, it was like in April, after October 7th, in April, it was like, I've studied coaching, I've studied show me, I've studied crystal therapy, I've studied energy healing, I've studied Jewish meditation, all of these different things. And I wanted to help. I just felt like I'm just sitting in my house, not helping, like stuck and not helping. And there was this one day that I was just so down, and I just started crying, and I really just asked God, like with the most earnest, heartfelt prayer, please help me. I want to help people. I want to do something with all of the stuff that I've learned. And I was crying. And after this heartfelt prayer, I picked up the phone and I called this woman who I know, who's a sound healer. And I said to her, Shani, do you need an assistant? Like, I don't feel ready to go out and start doing this on my own, but maybe I could get some practice. And she said, call me in 2 weeks. I might know of something. And if it happens, it'll be great. 2 weeks later, I called her, and I was offered a position to be an assistant in a trauma, like it's called Chavat Marpeh. It's like a healing space for people who experience trauma on October 7th. And so for a year, I was working as an assistant with police officers, soldiers, social workers, psychologists, as an assistant, and I got to practice. I got to build up. I really feel like God was very kind to me. Like, okay, Susan, you're not ready. Okay, fine. You know what? Let's ease you into, like, it was just such a kindness. Like, I wasn't thrown into the water. I guess I wasn't ready to be thrown into the water. Like, we spoke about this. When do you feel ripe? When do you feel like you're ready? And so I got this beautiful opportunity to work with Israelis in Israel, in Hebrew. It was just amazing. So I did that for a year, and then I signed up for the sound healing 6-month course. And as soon as I started taking the course and started understanding, I'm just going to reflect this back to show me, I needed to learn a system. I needed to know where to start, where to go, Because at the end of the day, people are lying down and they're entrusting you to take them onto some kind of a journey. And you do need to have some kind of a skill, or at least to feel confident where your intuition will take you. But it's nice to have a format. And in my sound healing course, every week we learned a different instrument, and then at the end it was all put together in terms of a format, like where to start, how to go through, where to take people to, and how to finish it. So between learning that and observing and being part of the actual practice of doing it in Chavat Marpeh, I started to do sound healing sessions in my home in Ranana. And, very, very slowly. And one of the things that I found is that I really love working with groups. I was working with groups of women. It started with groups of women. Then people said, you know what, our husbands want to come too. And I did some couples events. Also, I feel like collaborations are beautiful. I did a collaboration with a yoga therapist. We did an hour of yoga, and then we did an hour of sound healing. I did a collaboration with someone who does qigong and another woman who does ice baths. And we did, so I really feel like, you know, having some kind of a system like Show Me, which really gave me a system for coaching, and what I learned in my sound healing school, like that can be the container or the vessel to prepare you it prepared me to be able to start to take this overflowing vessel and to be able to start to water and let things out. And I actually also, like, on a physical level, because we talk about metaphors, I was very, very inflamed, and I was very, very full. And as I started to do the process of starting to do events at my house and start to trust myself, my body also, I started taking care of my body, and I released a whole bunch of weight, a whole bunch of inflammation, and started to feel a lot better mentally, physically, spiritually, practically, and it all kind of came together.
I want to say something and then we're going to finish. In Show Me, we're all the time working with two paces, right? We like the duality and then the gap. And I feel from your story and from my story as well, because, I felt also since 2017, I went through lots of ups and downs, and to figure out what am I doing with this thing, with this baby. And only now, when I look back, I can say clearly that, you know, when I was trying to push things, it didn't work out. And showed me the way. And what I loved in Show Me, and I see it clearly, that it all the times shows you that you don't need to go into the deep water. It's not necessarily, it's not about that. It's not about pushing or accelerating. It's about allowing. It's about allowing this vessel to empty and to understand how to really get tuned into the right position. And once you were ready, you shift the perception, like you change the music, literally. Because once you change the music, you could really accept the pace that you needed to create who you really are today. And I feel like I just want sometimes to tell and to remind it to also to myself, to tell the people who are like trying to rush things that sometimes this is exactly the opposite. It creates just suffering. Because yes, we are moving forward. There are like some struggles, but all what we need is to allow and to accept what is Kabbalah. Kabbalah, to receive. To receive. To receive. And in order to receive, we just need to let go of any conception that we have about what it's supposed to be. We just need to receive and allow to receive. And this is a total different thing than manifestation. Manifestation is like I I don't have that. I want that. It's not about that. It's about who I am, Suzanne. So I will be able to fulfill myself and express myself fully from a place of my purpose. So I will feel satisfaction. And I feel like you fine tune this energy so the ripples are there. And I can't wait to come to Israel and to do Show Me with your sounds healing. It will can be a beautiful workshop together. I can't wait to do it with you. So thank you so much for coming and sharing and just bring up memories, and thank you for the journey, your journey, our journey.
Thank you so much. I mean, like, I don't know how many people have the pleasure to be able to have someone who worked, worked through coaching together and then became practitioner, like, became a co practitioner and developed a friendship and can go back and say, like, look at the journey of 12 years. Like, it's amazing. So that's a big blessing. I I I want to add a couple things, if it's okay. So Kabbalah is to receive, and it also is Hagpala, parallel, a parallel. What is above, as is below. What's going on in the spiritual world is what's going on in the physical world, which I think, like my story of being inflamed, like so full that I was like exploding and not able to explode. But and in terms of the manifestation of where we want to be, I think like a key point is that alignment. Like feeling in line, and as you said, in tune, being in tune with, however you want to say, with God, with the universe, with our soul, having, because, you know, that whole like manifestation, sometimes we can manifest things that really aren't good for us because we want something that's, I want to be X, Y, and Z, and it's really not good for me. And I could be I could be fighting for that, or I could get something that's really not good for me. So I kind of feel like, and this is where the Jewish meditation really helped, was aligning up, aligning upward, and bringing down that which my soul, what is good for my soul, and what is good for me to do, and what God wants for me to do, and what my soul is here to do. So I feel like that is like the key point, is just figuring out like what are we really here to bring down, and what is really in alignment. And you're right, we don't have to beg. Then we don't have to beg. We have to be in the right place, in the right flow, and notice sort of the messages. And I feel like I'm in this place now. Thank God, I'm in a much better place than I was. And I hope in 12 years from now, Bezrat Hashem, we should have another conversation like this. And
Amen.
both of us will look at each other and say, remember that interview 12 years ago? We were in such a great place, but oh my gosh, look at where we've grown to
Love it.
now. Look at how we've built our vessels. Look at what else we've learned. Look at what else, look at where else we've grown. And
Love it.
yeah, so thank you for
Thank
this
you.
talk. And
Wow.